Alrighty, guys, welcome to our college football week 11 video here for the 2022 season. My name is Brock Page, and I do sports picks for free right here on YouTube. So sell my personal sports bets on patreon.com/BrockPage. And if you want to see which one of these free picks on this video that I'm actually betting on personally, I'll include a link for my college football tier package bets in the description section below. And just a reminder here, guys, if you sign up for that package here today, you're going to get access to that membership for the next 30 days. And as an added bonus here, I'll actually include all of my cheaper memberships for you, absolutely free with your purchase. And with that, guys, let's go ahead and dive into some free content, talking about a little Tuesday night action. Eastern Michigan, Akron, 7 o'clock Tuesday night. Eastern Michigan's -8, totals 56. And even though Eastern Michigan is the better team, I actually don't like laying 8 points with them on the road in a conference game. Their defense is allowing over 30 points per contest. Meanwhile, for Akron on the other side, these guys have a top 20 passing offense as bad as they've been. And of course, the best name in college football, I'm talking about wideout Shocky Jock Louis. That's right, Shocky Jock Louis and his teammate Alex Adams, they've combined for over 1,300 receiving yards between the two of them. When it comes to covering the point spread, the Zips got the job done in 4 out of their last 6. Now, total-wise, Akron did see their last 3 straight all stay under the line. Meanwhile, Eastern Michigan went 4-1 to the under in their last 5. I'm going to lean toward Akron, +8, under 56. Next ball game, Ohio at Miami, 7:30 Tuesday night. And of course, that's Miami, Ohio. The Ohio Bobcats are -1.5, totals 50. Now, the Red Hot Bobcats, they won their last 4 straight, and they successfully covered the number in all of those victories. And aside from scoring over 33 points a game, these guys have a top 15 passing offense. Curtis Rourke has thrown for over 2,700 yards and 21 touchdowns. Now, they're facing a Miami defense who struggles slowing down the pass. They actually have the 89th ranked passing defense in college football. When it comes to offensive production, the Red Hawks are in the bottom 10 in the country in total yards. Now, when it comes to the scoring, Miami saw all of their games this season stay under the line except for 1. Meanwhile, Ohio saw 3 out of their last 5 stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Ohio, -1.5, under 50. Next matchup, it is going to be Ball State at Toledo, 8 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Toledo's the 12-point favorite at home, totals 51. Now, the Toledo Rockets, they did fail to cover in their last 2 straight, and they're having a tough time throwing the football. They're actually 92nd in the country in passing the ball. Meanwhile, Ball State on the other side, they have the 36th ranked passing defense, so don't look for the Zips to throw it all over. I'm sorry, the Rockets. Don't look for Toledo to throw it all over. And I'll tell you what, for Ball State, for a team catching a dozen points, well, Ball State's gotten the W in 4 out of their last 5 ball games, and they played some really tough defense during that span. Cole Pierre, he has a team best 78 tackles along with 4.5 sacks. There's that Pierre? I don't know. It looks like Cole Pierre in my notes. But anyway, Cole, he's got 78 tackles, 4.5 sacks. When it comes to the total, Ball State saw 6 out of their last 7 stay under the total. Meanwhile, Toledo saw unders against the likes of Eastern Michigan, Central Michigan, and San Diego State. I'm going to lean toward Ball State, +12, under 51. Next ball game, little Wednesday action. I'm talking about Buffalo at Central Michigan, 7 o'clock Wednesday night. Buffalo's the 1-point favorite on the road, totals 54.5. And even though they are slightly favored on the road here, Buffalo's had some trouble on defense this season. They have one of the worst rush defenses in the MAC. They're actually 89th in the nation in total yards allowed. They're facing a Central Michigan team who got the W in 2 out of their last 3. They played pretty tough on defense over the past 4 games. Thomas Incomb's second in college football in sacks with 8.5. Meanwhile, Kyle Moretti has a team-best 64 tackles. Now, total-wise, Central Michigan did see their last 2 straight get over the line. Meanwhile, Buffalo saw 5 out of their last 8 get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean towards Central Michigan +1 over 54.5. Next matchup, Kent State at Bowling Green, 7 o'clock Eastern start time. Kent State's the 2.5-point favorite on the road, totals 55. And even though Kent State has struggled here recently, they are one of the better running teams in the game. Marquez Cooper, he has over 1,000 yards on the year already, and he scored 9 times on the ground. Now they're facing a Bowling Green team on the other side who really struggles on defense. They're allowing 32 points per contest, and in addition to that, they're actually 101st in the country in total yards allowed. And of course, that's 101st out of 131 teams. Now, offensively, on the other side of the football, well, they're in the bottom 25 in the nation. That's Bowling Green. They're in the bottom 25 in the nation in total yards per game. So really struggling on, both sides of the football. And when it comes to total, Bowling Green is 6-3 to the over in their last 9. No real surprise there because of their defensive struggles. Meanwhile, Kent State saw overs against Toledo, Georgia, and Long Island. I'm going to lean toward Kent State -2.5 over 55. Next matchup, it is going to be Tulsa at Memphis, 7:30 Thursday night. Memphis is -6, total 61. And even though they are favored by a touchdown, the Memphis Tigers lost their last 4 straight. And they're one of the worst covering teams in the conference. As a matter of fact, these guys failed to cover in all of their games except for 2 this year. Now, Memphis's biggest problem has been their defense. They're allowing 32 points a game, and they have the 119th ranked pass defense. Now, they're facing a Tulsa squad on the other side who loves to air it out themselves. Keelan Stokes, he's averaging over 100 yards a game receiving, and he scored 5 times. When it comes to defensive play, the Golden Hurricane allows only 176 yards a game through the air. Now, total-wise, Tulsa's 6-3 to the over in their last 9. Meanwhile, Memphis saw 8 out of their last 9 get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Tulsa, +6 over 61. The next matchup, Georgia Southern taking on Louisiana, 7:30 p.m. East. The Louisiana Raging Cajuns are -3, totals 59. Now, the Cajuns have played some pretty tough defense this season. They're allowing only 21 points a game, and they're in the top 35 in fewest yards allowed. Braylon Trahan has 4 interceptions on the year, along with 55 tackles. Meanwhile, Zion Hill-Green and Andre Jones, they've combined for 11.5 sacks on the year. Now, they're facing a Georgia Southern team who lost 3 out of their last 5, and they play some of the worst defense in the country. They're allowing over 225 yards a game on the ground. They're also in the bottom 3 in the nation in total yards allowed. Now, when it comes to the scoring, the Cajuns saw overs against the likes of Southern Miss, Arkansas State, and Eastern Michigan. Meanwhile, Georgia Southern saw 3 out of their last 4 get over the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Louisiana -3 over 59. Next contest, it is going to be ECU taking on Cincinnati, 8 o'clock Friday night. Now, Cincinnati is -7 at home, totals 53. Of course, the Bearcats got the W in 7 out of their last 8. And they do a real nice job throwing the football. Meanwhile, in defense, one of the things they do best is slow down the pass. They're actually in the top 20 in the nation in pass defense. Ivan Pace, he's currently 6th in the country right now in sacks with 8 of them. He's also the team's leader in tackles with 96. Now, they're facing an ECU team who has a tough time defending the pass themselves. These guys are actually in the bottom 25 in passing yards allowed. Bottom 25 in passing yards allowed. Now, as a team, the Pirates failed to cover in 3 out of their last 6. Failures to cover against the likes of Memphis, Tulane, and Navy. When it comes to the number, ECU saw 3 out of their last 4 stay under the total. Meanwhile, Cincinnati saw their last 5 straight all stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean towards Cincinnati -7 under 53. Next matchup, little Pac-12 action. I'm talking about Colorado at USC, 9:30 Eastern kickoff. USC is the 35-point favorite, total 66. Now, the Trojans are averaging 41 points a game, and they're in the top 10 in total yards. Travis Dye is gaining nearly 100 yards a game on the ground, and he scored 9 times rushing. They also have a top 15 passing offense. They're facing a pitiful Colorado team who allows over 40 points a game themselves, and they give up more yards a game on the ground than any other team in college football. Now, total-wise, 6 out of Colorado's last 8 did get over the number. No real surprise there, just how bad they've been playing defensively. Meanwhile, USC went 4-1 to the over in their last 5 themselves. No real shocker there. These guys can certainly move the football. I think they should cover. Give me USC minus 35, over 66. Next ball game, Fresno State at UNLV, 10:30 p.m. East. Fresno's minus 9, totals 58. Now, the Red Hot Bulldogs won their last 4 straight, and they're doing a great job slowing down the pass. Fresno actually has a top 35 passing defense. David Perales is also second in the country in sacks with 8.5. Now, teammate Lavelle Bailey, he leads the team in tackles as well. They're facing a UNLV team who's on a 4-game losing streak, and they have one of the worst offenses in the conference. They're actually 101st in the nation in total yards per game. Now, when it comes to scoring, UNLV saw overs against the likes of Notre Dame, New Mexico, and North Texas. Meanwhile, Fresno State's 4-1 to the over in their last 5. I'm going to lean toward Fresno State minus 9, over 58. Next ball game, little Saturday action. I'm talking about Missouri at Tennessee, 12 o'clock Saturday. Tennessee's the 21-point favorite, totals 57. And even though Tennessee's been dominant for most of the season, they are coming fresh off their first loss against Georgia, and they haven't been real sound on defense this year. As a matter of fact, the Vols are in the bottom 5 in the country in stopping the pass. They're facing a Missouri team who actually plays some really tough defense themselves. The Missouri Tigers are currently in the top 15 in the nation in fewest yards allowed per game. Jalen Carley's and Tyron Hopper, they have nearly 100 tackles between the two of them. Now, scoring-wise, the Tigers did see their last 8 straight all fall under the number. No real shocker there, just playing some really tough defense this year. Meanwhile, Tennessee saw unders against the likes of Georgia, Kentucky, and LSU. I'm going to lean toward Missouri plus 21, under 57. Next matchup I have for you, it is going to be Indiana at Ohio State, 12 o'clock East. Ohio State's the 40.5-point favorite, totals 57. And even though they're laying 40.5 points here, the Buckeyes should be able to cover this number at home. They're scoring more points a game than any other team in the country, and they have a slew of receivers who simply can't be stopped. Marvin Harrison and Emeka Egbuka, they've combined for over 1,600 yards receiving and 17 total receiving touchdowns. Meanwhile, defensively, the Buckeyes are giving up just 15 points per contest. They're facing an Indiana squad on the other side who actually has one of the worst offenses in the entire country. These guys are currently in the bottom 5 in running the football, really struggling establishing any type of run game. When it comes to defensive play, well, these guys haven't been able to stop pretty much anyone. They rank 107th in stopping the pass. Now, total-wise, Indiana saw 5 out of their last 8 get over the line. Meanwhile, Ohio State went 6-2 to the over in their last 8 themselves. I'm going to lean toward the Buckeyes minus 40.5, over 57. Next matchup I have for you. LSU at Arkansas, 12 o'clock Eastern start time. LSU's minus 3, total 63. Now, the Tigers won 7 out of their last 8, and they're doing a nice job getting it into the end zone. They're scoring 35 points a game, and they're gaining nearly 450 total yards per contest. Jaden Daniels is completing 70% of his passes and has 14 touchdowns compared to just 1 interception. Now, the quarterback has also run it into the end zone 10 times as well. They're facing an Arkansas defense who's one of the worst in the country in yards allowed through the air. As a matter of fact, Arkansas is currently in the bottom 3 in the nation right now in pass defense. Now, total-wise, Arkansas is 7-2 to the over in their last 9. Meanwhile, LSU saw their last 3 straight get over the line themselves. I'm going to lean toward the LSU Tigers -3 over 63. Next ball game, it is going to be Purdue at Illinois, 12 o'clock Eastern start time. Illinois is the 7-point favorite at home, totals 45. Now, the Illini is currently 91st in the country in scoring. They've got the 86th ranked passing offense. So even though they've been really dominant on defense, they're having a tough time moving the football. They're facing a Purdue team who loves to air it out themselves. Aiden O'Connell's thrown for over 2,400 yards, and he has 15 touchdowns. Meanwhile, wideout Charlie Jones is averaging over 100 yards a game receiving, and he scored 9 times. Now, total-wise, Purdue saw unders against the likes of Iowa, Minnesota, and Florida Atlantic. Meanwhile, Illinois, they went 7-1 to the under in their last 8. I'm going to lean toward Purdue +7, under 45. Next matchup, some more SEC action. I'm talking about Vanderbilt at Kentucky, 12 o'clock Eastern start time. The University of Kentucky, they're -16.5 at home, totals 49. Now, the 6-3 Wildcats have been real tough to score against. They're allowing only 19 points a game, and they're in the top 15 in fewest yards allowed. DeAndre Square and Derek Jackson, they've combined for nearly 100 tackles between the both of them. They're facing a Vandy squad who lost their last 5 straight, and they're allowing 37 points a game. They're also giving up nearly 475 yards of total offense per contest. When it comes to the total, 3 out of Vandy's last 5 did stay under the line. Meanwhile, Kentucky went 8-1 to the under in their last 9. I'm going to lean toward Kentucky -16.5, under 49. Next ball game I have for you, it is going to be Oklahoma at West Virginia, and that's going to be a 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Oklahoma is the 8-point favorite, total 66.5. Now, the Sooners have had a tough time covering the number this year. They failed to cover in 5 out of their last 6, and they played some pretty terrible defense. They're 112th in total yards allowed, and they're actually giving up 200 yards a game on the ground. Like I said earlier in the video, there's 131 qualifying teams, unto which Oklahoma's 112th in total yards allowed. Now, they're facing a West Virginia squad who's always tough to play in Morgantown. They're also averaging over 32 points a game offensively. Bryce Ford-Wheaton and Sam James, they've combined for over 1,100 yards receiving. Meanwhile, as a team, the Mountaineers have covered against the likes of Baylor, Virginia Tech, and Towson. When it comes to the number, West Virginia saw 5 out of their last 9 get over the line. Meanwhile, Oklahoma went 4-2 to the over in their last 6. I'm going to lean toward West Virginia +8, over 66.5. Next contest, Notre Dame at Navy, 12 o'clock East. Notre Dame is the 17-point favorite on the road, totals 42. And even though the Irish upset Clemson this past week, we're still looking at a Notre Dame squad who's little threat throwing the football. These guys are 114th in passing yards per game. And if you think they're just going to run it all over Navy, well, just keep in mind, the midshipmen have a top 10 rush defense. John Marshall has a team-best 72 tackles on the year for Navy. Meanwhile, Jacob Busick has 6 sacks on the year as well. And, of course, offensively, Navy runs it 1,000,000 times a game. They just pound it and pound it and pound it. They currently have a top 10 rushing offense. Now, total-wise, Navy saw unders against the likes of Cincinnati, Air Force, and East Carolina. Meanwhile, Notre Dame saw 5 out of their last 9 stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Navy +17, keeping this one close, under 42. Next ball game, it is going to be Liberty at UConn, and that'll be a 12 o'clock Eastern start time. Liberty's -14.5, totals 47. Now, the Flames are on a 6-game winning streak, and they suffered only 1 loss all year. When it comes to defensive play, the Flames are allowing just 21 points a game, and they do a nice job of slowing down the run. Mike Smith Jr. and Ahmad Walker, they have over 100 tackles between the two of them. Meanwhile, Robert Rahimi's tied for first in the country with 5 interceptions. Now they're facing a UConn team on the other side who simply just can't move the football. They're scoring only 18 points a game, and they throw for just 105 yards per contest. Hell, me or you could probably do that. Now, total-wise, UConn went 5-0 to the under in their last 5 straight. Meanwhile, Liberty saw 3 out of their last 5 stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Liberty, minus 14.5, under 47. Next ball game I have for you, a little Big Ten action. I'm talking about Rutgers taking on Michigan State, 12 o'clock Eastern start time. Michigan State's minus 10.5 on the road, totals 40. And even though Michigan State is coming off a big win, they're still one of the worst covering teams in the Big Ten. They failed to cover in 5 out of their last 7. They're one of the worst rushing teams in America. The Spartans are gaining only 99 yards a game on the ground, and they're 110th in total yards per contest. Now, they're facing a Rutgers team who plays some really physical defense. This is one of the tougher defenses in the Big Ten. They're actually in the top 20 in the entire country in fewest yards allowed. Deion Jennings, he leads the day in tackles with 75. Meanwhile, Chris Easian's second on the team in tackles with 63. When it comes to the scoring, Rutgers saw 3 out of their last 4 stay under the total. No real surprise there. Meanwhile, Michigan State went 4-2 to the under in their last 6. I'm going to lean toward Rutgers plus 10.5 and a letdown spot for Michigan State in the under 40. Once again, that's Rutgers plus 10.5, keeping this one close, under 40 points. Next matchup, little ACC action. I'm talking about Virginia Tech at Duke, and that'll be a 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff. Now, that game is currently not on our big screen, but Duke is minus 11 at home, totals 49.5. Now, the Blue Devils are scoring 35 points a game, and they're in the top 25 in rushing. Matter of fact, these guys are averaging just about 5.5 yards a carry, and they scored 26 touchdowns on the ground. They're facing a Virginia Tech team who's got one of the worst offenses in the ACC. They're scoring just 20 points a game, and they're in the bottom 15 in the country in total yards. Now, when it comes to the number, Va-Tech went 6-3 to the under in their last 9. Meanwhile, Duke saw 5 out of their last 9 stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Duke, minus 11, under 49.5. Next contest, it is going to be Pitt at Virginia, 12 o'clock Eastern start time. The Pitt Panthers are minus 4, totals 41. Now, Pitt's allowing just 109 yards a game on the ground. They're also in the top 30 in fewest total yards allowed per game. Servocia Davis, he's leading the team in tackles and sacks. Now, they're facing a Virginia team on the other side who lost 5 out of their last 6. And they've been horrible on offense. Their 18 points a game is in the bottom 10 in the country. Now, when it comes to the number, the Cavaliers saw all of their games this year stay under the total, except for one. Meanwhile, Pitt on the other side, they saw unders against schools such as Syracuse, Louisville, and Tennessee. I'm going to lean toward the Pitt Panthers, minus 4, under 41. All right, next contest, it is going to be SMU at USF, and that'll be a 12 o'clock Eastern kickoff. SMU's the 18-point favorite on the road, totals 72. Now, the USF Bulls, they just can't score enough to help put this one over. They also can't really, come on, TV. Let's get off here. Anyway, South Florida, they can't score enough to help put this one over. They're 108th in passing yards, and they haven't won a football game since September 10th. Now, they're facing an SMU team who covered the number in their last 3 straight, and they throw it all over the field. As a matter of fact, these guys are in the top 5 in the country in passing yards per game. Rashee Rice, he has over 1,000 yards receiving already, and he averages just about $120 a game. When it comes to scoring points, the Mustangs are actually averaging over 40 points per contest. Now, total-wise, SMU did somehow see unders against the likes of Cincinnati, UCF, and Maryland. I'm going to lean toward SMU minus 18, under 72. Next matchup, UL Monroe taking on Georgia State, 1 o'clock East. Georgia State's minus 13.5, totals 59. Now, Georgia State has one of the most prolific rushing attacks in the country. They're gaining just about 250 yards a game on the ground, and they rank in the top 5 in the nation in that category. Matter of fact, the Panthers have rushed for over 2,200 yards this year as a team, and they scored 19 times on the ground. They're facing a UL Monroe team who has one of the worst rush defenses in the country. They're allowing over 180 yards a game on the ground, and they rank 104th in rush defense. Now, as a team, guys, the Warhawks have lost 4 out of their last 5 ball games. When it comes to the total, ULM, they did go 4-1 of the over in those 5 games I just mentioned. Meanwhile, Georgia State, on the other side, they saw overs against the likes of Southern Miss, Georgia Southern, and Coastal Carolina. I'm going to lean toward Georgia State minus 13.5, over 59. Next matchup I have for you, it is going to be James Madison taking on Old Dominion, 1 o'clock Eastern start time. JMU's minus 7 away from home, totals 46.5. Now, I do really like this number for JMU backers here. They're scoring over 35 points a game, and they've had little issue running the football. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side, this is one of the toughest defenses in the country at James Madison. The Dukes are in the top 3 in stopping the run. Taurus Jones and Jalen Walker, they have over 100 tackles between the two of them. Meanwhile, this JMU pass rush has 24 sacks on the year. Now, they're facing an ODU squad on the other side who failed to cover in 5 out of their last 6, really struggling to, cover the point spread. The Monarchs also have no chance at running the football on the Dukes here on Saturday. They're in the bottom 10 in the country in rush yards per game. Now, total-wise, the Monarchs saw their last 3 straight stay under the line. Meanwhile, James Madison saw unders against the likes of Louisville, Marshall, and Middle Tennessee. I'm going to lean toward JMU minus 7, under 46.5. The next contest, it is going to be Lamar at New Mexico State, 2 o'clock East. Now, this game's currently off the board. Probably won't see a number for this game until Saturday. At the earliest, maybe Friday night. But anyway, Lamar at New Mexico State, 2 o'clock East. Game is off the board. And, of course, the Aggies of New Mexico State, they got the W in 3 out of their last 4, and they played some pretty tough defense during that span. They allowed just 17 points a game during that time frame, and they're led by Chris Ojo and Trevor Brohard, who combined for over 120 tackles. Now, that is a 2020's name, Trevor Brohard. Gotta love, that's a Gen Z name right there. But anyway, Ojo and Brohard, they combined for over 120 tackles. They're facing a 1-win Lamar team who gives up a whole lot of points. They're actually allowing 38 points a game at the FCS level. I'm going to lean toward New Mexico State getting the job done against the spread. Next matchup, Rice at Western Kentucky, 2 o'clock Eastern start time. Western Kentucky's minus 13, total 61.5. And even though the Hilltoppers love to throw it, well, pass defense is one thing that Rice does well. Rice is actually in the top 35 in the nation in stopping the pass. And when it comes to covering, the Owls got the job done against the number in 6 out of their last 8. Now, Chris Conte and Myron Morrison, they have over 100 tackles between the two of them. They're facing a WKU team who ranks 72nd in the country in stopping the pass. They also failed to cover against the likes of North Texas, Troy, and Austin Peay. When it comes to total, Rice saw every one of their games this season get over the line except for one. I'm going to lean toward Rice plus 13, over 61.5. Next ballgame, UMass at Arkansas State, 3 o'clock East. The Arkansas State Red Wolves are minus 17.5, totals 47. And even though Ark State are the huge favorites, they've had some trouble moving the football this year. Now, for one, they're completely uncommitted to the run. They're gaining just 92 yards a game on the ground. And as a matter of fact, these guys rank 112th in total yards per game. Now they're facing a UMass team who does a real nice job slowing down the pass themselves. As a matter of fact, the Minutemen have a top 25 pass defense. Jalen Mackey and Tyler Rudolph, they have 110 tackles combined. When it comes to the total, UMass is 78% to the under on the year. Meanwhile, Ark State saw unders against the likes of South Alabama, Southern Miss, and Old Dominion. I'm going to lean toward UMass plus 17.5, under 47. And with that, guys, we're going to jump into our next and final matchup for Part 1. It is going to be Temple at Houston, 3 o'clock Eastern start time. Houston's minus 19, totals 58. And even though this is a pretty big number, and I actually hate this number for Houston backers, I do think the Cougs should be able to cover at home here. They're scoring 37 points a game, and they're in the top 15 in passing yards. Nate Dell is averaging over 100 yards a game receiving, and he has a dozen touchdown catches. Meanwhile, as a team, the Cougs got the W in 3 out of their last 4. They're facing a Temple squad who's got one of the worst offenses in the nation. They're scoring only 19 points a game, and they're in the bottom 10 in running the football. When it comes to the total on this one, oddly enough, Temple went 3-1 to the over in their last 4. Meanwhile, Houston saw all of their games this year get over the total themselves, except for one. I'm going to go ahead and lean toward Houston, minus 19, over 58. Oh, man. All right, guys, and with that, we're going to jump into our quick pick recap. I like Akron plus 8, under 56. Ohio minus 1.5, under 50. Ball State plus 12, under 51. Central Michigan plus 1, over 54.5. And one final reminder, guys, if you want to see which one of these free picks on this video that I'm actually betting on personally, there's only one way to do that, and that's to sign up for my college football tier package bets on my website. Give me Kent State minus 2.5, over 55. Tulsa plus 6, over 61. Louisiana minus 3, over 59. Cincinnati minus 7, under 53. USC minus 35, over 66. Fresno State minus 6, over 58. Missouri plus 21, under 57. Ohio State minus 40.5, over 57. LSU minus 3, over 63. Purdue plus 7, under 45. Kentucky minus 16.5, under 49. West Virginia plus 8, over 66.5. Navy plus 17, under 42. Liberty minus 14.5, under 47. Rutgers plus 10.5, under 40. Duke minus 11, under 49 and a hook. Pitt minus 4, under 41. SMU minus 18, under 72. Georgia State minus 13.5, over 59. James Madison minus 7, under 46.5. Give me New Mexico State getting the job done against the spread. Rice plus 13, over 61.5. UMass plus 17.5, under 47. And with my next and final free pick, give me Houston minus 19, over 58.